The first money into any startup is called friends and family money. But what if you don't have friends and family with the wherewithal to make an angel investment, and you don't have the money either? How do you get your startup off the ground? Hi, I'm Lance. Welcome to Fill the Booth, where every other week I upload new episodes with advice and tips for startups. A viewer recently asked me how he could get his company launched when neither he nor anyone he knows has the kind of capital necessary to be an angel investor, to actually fund the early stages of this company. He doesn't have friends and family money at all. So he's going to have to bootstrap it, and that's clearly doing things the hard way. So at Feel the Boot, I often have to deliver the hard boot of reality. And in this case, the reality is no angel investor will ever invest in a first-time founder who only has an idea for his company. We always need to see more than that. We need to see the prototype and customers, or we need to see a founder who has a track record, who has multiple successful exits, and we know that they can actually achieve this. But of course, if you're a successful founder with multiple successful exits, then you don't fall into this category anyway. You and the people you know have money. So, if you find yourself in this situation, you're trying to launch a company with no startup capital, the first step is to do research and lots of it. You need to prove out every detail of your business. Try to risk reduce everything possible. Make sure that you can demonstrate that what you're planning will be successful. And I have a whole episode on how to test assumptions. I've got a card up here and a link down in the doobly-doo. There are two paths that you can take as a founder without any funding. And the first is if you can actually build the thing yourself. You can create the prototype or the minimum viable product, device, service, software, whatever it is. Personally, you have that skill set and you can do it. Or at least with your founder group, you have that ability. And so then you can go out and start iterating. You can create a prototype or a wireframe, get feedback on that, learn what your customers want, iterate, create better MVPs, and by the time you go to angels, you have some real data. You've got a thing that you've built, a minimum viable product, you've got some users, you've got some real data about traction and utilization, and now you actually have the potential to raise your first outside money. And you don't need to be amazing at what you're doing. I wrote the software for many of the early versions of Anonymizer and some of the other tools that we created and services, and I am not a great coder. But I could code well enough to put something together that we could start testing. It was ugly, it had the worst coding standards in the world. When I finally could hire real developers, they had to replace literally every line of anything that I ever wrote. But it was enough for me to demonstrate that Anonymizer had real potential. Customers wanted it, it solved a problem, it had the kind of workflow and experience that people wanted, and a whole bunch of other projects that I pursued, which no one's ever heard of, because I demonstrated that they didn't work. And I was able to do so quickly and cheaply with the kind of prototype that I could write myself. But what if you're not a technical founder? If you can't build the tool yourself? Now you need to take the other route. You need to go find someone who can build this tool for you, and will do it for no money. Now you need to go out and find a co-founder. So your job becomes getting into that entrepreneurial community and getting someone else excited about your vision for this business. And it turns out there's a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, who are excited about being part of a startup, but they don't have the business idea. They don't have a vision for the company they want to build. They just want to be part of that excitement. And if you can get them to buy into your vision and be excited about the idea you have, then they'll be willing to come on board and build that prototype for you. They'll be the technical co-founder who does that lifting. Now, of course, they expect and deserve substantial equity compensation for this. They're not some hired gun. After all, you didn't hire them. They're not making any money because you don't have any money. They're a co-founder, and you need to treat them like that. Mutual respect between teams of technical and non-technical co-founders, when they work well together, is an incredibly powerful pairing and actually very attractive to many angel investors. We like to see both the business acumen as well as the technical acumen within the same organization. There's always a trade-off between time and money. One piece of advice I hear all the time is you should always spend money to save time. But for you, as an unfunded founder, that's not a choice. You don't have any money, but you do have time, and that's the resource you can spend. So you always want to look for, what are the ways that I can use my time, my energy, my thought process to move the company forward in ways that don't require any, or at least very little, cash expenditure. Beyond creating that minimum viable product, that prototype, and doing the research to test your assumptions, there's a number of different activities you can engage in. Some of them more appropriate to consumer, some more appropriate to B2B. So if you're in the consumer space, you want to be getting involved in social media. You want to be trying to create an audience and some buzz around your idea. You want to be engaging in these online communities. Start taking advantage of all of the different tools and services out there that allow people to discover new products and services. So if you've got some new SaaS offering, there are websites where people go to find out about these new tools and get in and do beta testing. These are active early adopters who want to be doing the latest cool thing. You can take advantage of that to get those people on board and start learning from them. Start improving that iteration process because you now have your product actually engaging with real users. You can also get big bang for your buck out of PR. If you have a product or service that is interesting to the media, that can drive a lot of excitement. One of the companies I work with has a product that helps address PTSD in soldiers and first responders. And the guy who invented it is himself a veteran and built this for himself and gives it away to certain charities. It's an amazing story. The media loves it. And every time he can get a reporter to talk about it, he sees a big spike in sales. Doesn't work for everyone, but it works for many. Online communities are another great resource where you can meet other people in your sector. There'll be users there, there'll be potential partners, potential investors, potential advisors. Any way you can get out, meeting other people who are like-minded, interested in this space is going to help you in all kinds of ways. And finally, you can, for very little money, do a lot of interesting tests with social media ads. You can get people to discover your product. You can learn how to tune your messaging. You can discover what value propositions matter to your target audience and which ones don't. Pretty quick and easy way to learn a lot of new information. On the B2B side, it's really about networking. You need to meet people in this sector. If you're not already from the sector, and of course, most of the most successful founders that I've seen come from the sector that they're trying to address. They've been in that business, so they intimately understand the problems and they already have connections. But whether you have connections or not, you want to be asking everyone you know for references. You want to get references to new customers, to new advisors, possible partners, channel partners. Continuously be reaching out. Anytime you're having a conversation, talk about what you're trying to do and ask people if they can refer anyone, if they can point you in the right direction. You don't need to ask them for anything except just advice, suggestions, and pointers. In fact, you want to be talking to a ton of potential customers as early as you can, not to try to sell them anything, but to try to really understand where their head's at. In the B2B space, sales are often long and complex, and understanding how they buy, why they buy, what are the impediments, what are the reasons that other startups that come to them don't get their business. And you can then use that to shape your offering and how you deliver it and how you think about it and iterate the product itself to mesh better with the market you're trying to serve. You also want to be joining associations related to your industry and going to industry events, ideally ones that are free or cheap. But usually there's a lot of places you can get plugged into that community that'll give you better visibility and insight, and again, help with your networking. And for everyone, B2B or B2C, I recommend going to pitch events. Get good practice in delivering your message, that elevator pitch, your fundraising ask. The more you do it, the better you'll get, and that feedback can be invaluable. In addition, there will be other entrepreneurs there that you can network with, that you can learn with, that can become part of your support group and your community. And there's often investors there. And while they're unlikely to invest based on a practice pitch, they now know who you are, and you can maintain those connections so that when it's time to actually approach them, you're not some stranger, it can be a warm introduction. And finally, look for advisors. building a good pool of advisors is super important. Again, you don't have the money to hire anyone, but advisors often work for free or just for a little bit of equity, and they've got connections, they've got experience. I've seen a lot of people who end up coming to pitch to my angel group, and their founding team doesn't have particularly deep experience, but they've built out a killer bench of advisors. And we have confidence that those people will help make sure the company's successful. They can bring in the right resources, they can make the right introductions, they can make sure that the company doesn't go off the rails. And that helps risk reduce the whole proposition for us. I don't want to sugarcoat this. This is not the easy way to do things. It's going to be a long, hard road to build the company up to the point where you can realistically get angel investment. And by the time you do, you may discover you don't actually need outside investment, and you can just continue to bootstrap, which allows you to keep all the equity for yourself, but it puts you in control at that point. If you have or are bootstrapping a startup with no friends and family capital, I'd love to hear your stories about what's worked and what hasn't worked for you. I think this is especially one of those cases where sharing this knowledge can help other entrepreneurs. Thanks for watching this episode of Fill the Boot. I hope you found it useful and interesting, and if so, do the usual: like, subscribe, mash that bell, but also share this with other entrepreneurs. Trying to help as many people as I possibly can. And please let me know what other topics you'd like to see me cover. If you find these videos are hard to carve out time for, you can get all the same information in my blog at feeltheboot.com or as a podcast on any of the usual podcasting services. Till next time, ciao.